Welcome back to Light Talk, where the paranormal and the supernatural is a part of our everyday life. If you have a story you would like to share, email me at lighttalk423@gmail.com. And while you're at it, click on the like, share, and subscribe buttons down below. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'd like to just jump into the game here. So, we're going to hand the mic over to the guest today, and I am so glad he is with us today. He's got so many stories to tell. So, we're going to get started. So, go ahead and introduce yourself and welcome to the show.
Hey guys, I'm Rob. I'm with the Typical Skeptic podcast. I've been doing podcasting for 5 years. It's been a weird journey, you know. I had a YouTube I had a whole YouTube channel taken down in that time. In my this year it just happened. So I had 20,000 subscribers, and they just, they decided they found something they didn't like, so they deleted it. But I started over, I started over, and I'm building on Rumble too, and I'm on audio, and I have pretty high rankings for my audio podcast because I've been doing it for so long. I mean, do you want me to tell you like how this all started for me and stuff like that?
Yeah, we can start with that. Definitely. Yeah.
So yeah, so like when I was a kid, I was always like into like the paranormal and UFOs, and I mean back then, like, but I'm 45 years old, so I'm going back to like in the 80s, 90s, when I was growing up, and like it really started like coming more to fruition when I was in like my teenage years and like my early 20s, like because but I did have an experience when I was a kid, which was really strange. Like, I know you talk about the paranormal on here, so I'll tell you, I was experiencing like sleep paralysis at a really young age. Like, I always talk about like it was really, really like densely hot here in Pittsburgh. Like, that's where I'm from, Pittsburgh. I moved around a lot. I went to all different kinds of places all over the East Coast, but then I always ended up back here in Pittsburgh. So I'm going back to like when I was 8 or 9 years old, and I remember it was like just like insanely hot, which is weird because now it's really cold. It gets really cold here at night, even in the middle of summer. But then back then, summers were like real hot. And anyway, I was sleeping, and I only, I had a fan in my room, I think then, and I remember going to sleep, and like I remember feeling this. I remember, I would be paralyzed. I'd wake up paralyzed. I would just wake up and I'd be paralyzed, and I didn't understand what was going on. I couldn't open my eyes a lot of the times. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it felt like somehow my eyes were like sealed shut. It was very weird. And then when I was in this state, I would feel this presence coming towards me, and you could almost say I saw it with, I guess, my mind's eye. You know what I mean? Because I couldn't open my eyes, but I could see and I could sense something coming towards me. And what I saw in my mind's eye and what I sensed was coming towards me was this black mass that looked like literally like an old hag. So when people talk about the old hag syndrome, I had that, and it felt like it would come on my chest and sit on my chest, and like it would just, and then I remember, I was raised Christian, so I'm not that now. I'm more spiritual, but I mean, so I would pray, and it seemed to work because, I never got seriously injured. It was just a thing that happened. And then, I don't really, I haven't experienced the sleep paralysis since I was a kid, and then, I didn't have much other stuff paranormal happen, but what happened, I think that did like spark my interest because then at the time I started watching like sightings, and I was watching unsolved mysteries, and but then one night in, I think it was 2001, it was either 1999 or 2001, around that time, before the word podcast even existed, I was driving my girlfriend home. She was a little bit younger than me, so I was driving her home, and this was like 1 in the morning, and I turned on the radio, and I was just flipping through AM radio, and I found this guy, and he was talking about like UFOs and paranormal and witchcraft, and like, and I never heard anything like it before in my life. I was like, what is this? This is amazing. And then it became like this like ritual where I like, I had to like try to find this guy on the radio, and who that ended up being was Art Bell, from the legendary Coast to Coast AM. And I was listening to Art Bell any chance I could get. I wanted, I just wanted to know what was going on. And I always loved Art's voice. He always had like a real calming, soothing voice, and like great for radio. You know what I mean? And I would love when people called in. That was the best when people would call in and like tell their stories and stuff like that. So I became a Art Bell fan at an early age, and then I guess we could say like life happens, and in 2015. I was researching something. I mean, because I always loved like ancient history as well, for whatever reason. I have like Greek and Italian heritage, so I always like going back to like the ancient times of like Persia and ancient Greece and ancient Rome. I like more like the Greco-Persian stuff that's really interesting, and then even further than that, like Sumerian and Egypt, and that stuff's like really interesting to me. But at that time, I wasn't exposed to a lot of alternative ancient history, and I think I was research. I was just bored one day, and I was like researching something about Alexander the Great because I was always interested in Alexander the Great, and I came across this video, and it was called "The Battle of the Eagle and the Serpent," and I was like, "What is this?" So I clicked on it, and remember, this is 2015 before a lot of stuff hadn't come out yet about the Anunnaki, and it was a video by Matthew LaCroix, and what the eagle and the serpent video was is the eagle stood for Enlil, and the serpent stood for Enki. They were the two Anunnaki brothers, and then you find out that supposedly they came here and maybe genetically modified man. A lot of people say like it was Zachariah Sitchin and stuff like that, but it's more than that. Like you can do your own research and you can look up the Sumerian tablets and like there's a lot of evidence that there was something here. Whether it was I don't want to say for sure that it was extraterrestrial. They could have been more advanced humans. They could have been from inner Earth. But I think that the tablets strongly point out that something was here influencing man. And they called themselves the Anunnaki. And then I've interviewed a lot of researchers that that have done research that say that they might have went all over the world and helped spread civilization, pre-flood and then after the flood. When I say the flood, I mean like the Great Flood, which like is like in a lot of cultures. You have it in obviously the Christian Bible. They say God made a flood, but then in the Sumerian text, it's called the Atrahasis. That's the name of the flood story, and it's named after the guy Noah, who they know of as Atrahasis. And Enki, who is an Anunnaki, he goes to Atrahasis and tells him to build a boat because his brother Enlil is going to wipe out the humans all over the world. So you get a different version of the story of the flood there, which is really interesting. I always tell people, as I'm telling my story here, I'm obsessed with this ancient history stuff. I always tell people if you're going to research the Sumerian stuff, the three biggest things to research is the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Atrahasis, and then the Enuma Elish. And with those three things, if you research all three of those, you'll come away with like a lot of questions about like what happened here and what is our real history. But but it's interesting how some of those tablets tie together, like the Atrahasis and the Epic of Gilgamesh tie together because and they found Gilgamesh's tomb, by the way. They found it in Iraq, so he was a real person. Whether he was a demigod, I don't know, but I mean, so going back to it, they those tie together because in the story of Epic of Gilgamesh, Gilgamesh is searching for eternal life. He's a demigod, and he wants to have eternal life. So he's on a quest to find Atrahasis, who we know from the flood story, and he finds him. And Atrahasis tells Gilgamesh, he says, there was a time where the gods once walked with men. He says it. He says it right in the tablets. He says there was a time where the gods once walked with men, which I thought, I was like, wow, that's amazing. So so you find a lot of like correlations there, and then that was my first absolute rabbit hole, was like going into like the ancient history stuff. And then now this was 2015, so it made me kind of when I found that it made me kind of it sparked my interest for other conspiracy theories and other rabbit holes and other avenues of the paranormal to look down. And I just started, I mean, literally, I started going crazy. For some reason, I got something woke up in me. It was like, you could say it was my awakening point, and I just started researching everything. You know what I mean? I was like, like 9/11, JFK, obviously, those are ones that everybody looks into. But I mean, everything, you know what I mean? From alternative
Right.
health to like paranormal to UFOs, and then I hadn't really heard about the secret space program then yet that much, but like I remember I saw Max Spears on some videos, and I was a fan of Carrie Cassidy's work, who I had on my show recently. But so I knew a little bit about it, you know. But if somebody would have told me that 5 years later I'd be covering this secret space program and stuff like, I never would have thought it. But I'll talk about that. But so, after I went down every rabbit hole, I waited about 5 years, and then in 2020, the pandemic hit. And when the pandemic hit, I was like, oh, what am I going to do? I didn't have a job, and I just started doing shows. And I was working a full-time job up until 2023. And then in 2023, I said, that's it. I'm not doing this anymore because I was in a job where I was being treated like shit. I couldn't get a job in like my field, which was mortgages, and I didn't want to do that anyway because it didn't feel right for my soul for the path that I was going down. So, I said, I'm just going to try to do this podcast and like, and that's it. And I started in 2023 and I haven't looked back, and I've been able to, support myself, so far, up until now, right up until right now, I haven't had to take a job yet. But I mean, some people in the industry are, they're like, they get weird about that. They're like, people shouldn't make money off a podcast. I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean, I feel like if you're giving out information and you're providing good stuff to the community, you should get something back. Like it's like an energy exchange. So I don't know. Yeah, but I
It
mean,
is a
so
full-time job. It
oh
is a
yeah,
full-time job to do it. And, if you have another full-time job, it makes it tough. It makes it real tough to keep things going and moving smoothly and everything when you have the two jobs like me.
you know what I did today? So this is why I stay. I mean, you're gonna think I'm crazy for saying this, but I did 4 interviews. Well, at 8 o'clock, that'll be my fourth interview. I already did two today. Now I'm doing your podcast, and then I'll do one at 8 because I like to overschedule myself. I like to stay busy, and I like to keep putting content out. Like I have this like thirst for knowledge that like I don't know where it comes from. I want to know everything that's going on, and I want to know the disclosure. But one thing I can tell you about that was really interesting that happened recently, and I think me and you have talked about this when you came on my show, and I want to thank you for. Oh, I'm coming through your speaker, I think. Oh no, I'm not. Okay, good.
We're good.
Um, is I had a bad entity attachment for like maybe 3 months. It was really bad. It was and up until that point, I hadn't had many paranormal experiences. Like I said, I had you know, the uh, the sleep paralysis when I was a kid, but like my life was pretty normal, and then I was what happened from what I can remember is I was receiving energy work. My friend Priscilla was giving me energy work at night, like because I have a diagnosed non-alcoholic fatty liver disorder, so I was sometimes I'd be in pain for my liver, and I would ask her if she could, do energy work. So I would have it, and I'd be laying here, and I would just feel it. But then one night, something came in my studio, and it was like trying to touch me. And this all started like 2 years ago when my actually. So I'll rewind a little bit. This started 2 years ago when my ex-girlfriend was here. Like when my ex-girlfriend was here, like something was touching me at night, and it was like it started like it would just, touch me, and then I'd look over and I'd look at her, and she wasn't moving, she'd be sleeping or whatever, and I'd be like, huh, that was strange. So, where was it? Okay, so I noticed the touching at night, and then I got rid of that, or I thought I did. I thought I got rid of it, but then about 6 months ago, well, this would be 8 months ago now. About 8 months ago, I was on this futon behind me. I sleep on it at night because when I broke up with my ex-girlfriend, she got my bed. But anyway, yeah, yeah. But so I was on this futon, and so at night I would feel like entities coming up from the floor, and they were literally like loosh feeding off my liver. If that sounds crazy, like loosh is like energy. I'm sure and your audience knows that. Like it seemed like they were like like they knew they could sense that I had a problem there, and they were like trying to exploit it, like the entities. And what I found from these entity attachments are, I think entities are really evil. And I think they really hate humankind. I really do. I think they despise us for some reason. I don't know why, but I mean, you know, because I don't think none of us asked to come here. On a side note, I think I mean maybe they say star seeds and stuff. A lot of star seeds, took on the mission to come here. But like me, I feel like I didn't ask to come here. So like, I don't know how I got ended up in a human body and I'm living this life and all that stuff. But that's a whole other conversation. But I don't think entities like us. I really don't. I think I don't, and it seems like they have a really evil, sinister plan. So I had my friend get rid of that, and then about like I've gone back to what I was saying about like this would be 4 months ago now. I was laying there at bed at night, and something came in, and it felt like it was like scanning my head, like. I swear to God on my dad's grave, this is the truth. And and I was like, what is it? And this happened like a couple nights in a row. And I would tell my friends about it, and a couple of them were like, oh, maybe it's an upgrade. You should just go with it. And I was sick of like, trying to this happened night after night. I was sick of like fighting it off after night or night. So I was like, I'm just gonna go with it. So I went and it came in the one night and it felt like it made contact with my crown here and it pierced my crown and it sent like I don't even know what into my eyes, and my eyes started like having flashes in them. Like, and then I started like literally convulsing, like it was crazy. And I kind of shook myself out of it, and I jumped out of bed. I was like, "What the f was that?" And then ever since after that, I started feeling like a weird, like energy attachment. Like it would feel like there'd be like a magnet on the side of my head, or it'd feel like it would lock around my ear, or it'd feel like it would nest on my back. You know what I mean? It was really strange. It felt like what I can only call an astral parasite. You know what I mean? But like I've learned ways to fight them off. Like you can kind of use your heart energy as one tool. Like a lot of people don't know that our heart is like one of the most powerful weapons we have as far as like you can do it. You can use it to manifest things. You can use your pineal gland and heart to like hone in on an object or a thought that you have in your mind, and you can try to manifest things. But then you can also raise your heart energy. So what I was doing was I was using the Genius biofeedback machine, which is like this it's this app that it does frequencies, but it's supposed to be for your health and it takes care of all your health, but then it does it does it does spiritual stuff too. And the way it works is you put your voice into the app, and then you take a picture, and it takes a picture of your auric field, and then it tells you from reading your voice pattern. I guess because this is from through quantum entanglement or something, it can tell what's wrong with you. You know what I mean? And it'll give you all these options, and then you put the options in a tray, and then you hit play, and it plays a frequency, and you just listen to that frequency. Well, I was using that frequency, just to, I mean, because like I didn't notice major healing from it. It was a cool thing, but I was using that frequency more way to keep away the entity. Like for whatever reason, it was doing that. And then I realized that what else the frequency was doing is it was actually charging my heart energy. Like every time I listened to this frequency, it was that powerful that it actually could charge your heart energy. And then what you can do with that heart energy is you can send it to different points of your body that are being affected. So it's say like the entity's on my head and I'm manifesting with my heart. I channel that heart energy, send it to my head, and get rid of whatever's on my head. I learned that's something you can actually do. You know, I don't know what you think about that from your experience and stuff.
That sounds right. I mean, with working with the heart, it is a very strong chakra. With that and working with your other chakras, I think it could be an amazing thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So that happened. So but you like but altogether the entity attachment has been like a it's on and off. Like it still comes back sometimes, but it's very mild now. It's not a lot at all, and it seems like my body is like figured out a way to like naturally fight it off. I don't know if we just have astral parasites, all of us humans, and they loosh off of us all the time, and maybe some of us get to a point where we can perceive them more, because we're opening ourselves up or something. I'm not sure what it is, or if maybe I had a hole in my auric field and then that's what caused them to be able to penetrate my and feed because it was like I was like an all day feeding frenzy for them, you know what I mean? They'd be
Yeah,
on my
you had
head.
yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah, you had a really tough time there for a while with all of it. And
Oh, sorry. I thought you were.
oh no, you're fine. You did have a really hard time with them there for a while with them. And so I think what you're doing is you're raising your chakra vibration and you're raising that vibration. So now they're having a harder time coming through because maybe like you said, there's a hole in your aura or you weren't um you had a fear or something going on. So they were attaching to that fear. So
Yeah,
now that you are coming out of the fear, you're strengthening your chakras, everything's kind of moving to a higher frequency. They don't like that. It's like
yeah,
love versus fear. You know, love is always going to conquer it. And that's what you're doing. You're using your heart chakra to conquer what's going on. So,
yeah.
congrats. Doing a great job.
Thanks. And then another trick I found, I don't know how I found this. If you ever, I don't know what it is, but it works. So like my friend Michelle told me, she's like, if you ever need a clearing, she's like, call on the Black Dragons. And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, just call on the Black Dragons and they'll clear you. And I was like, so wait a minute, all I have to say is Black Dragons clear me. And they will. I don't know who it is. I don't know if it, a lot of people say dragons are coming into like our consciousness right now. Like I had a friend, her name was Jamie Jacobson. She was a really sweet girl. She was really into dragons, and she said she sensed them and felt them all the time. So, and then I noticed other people in the community started talking about dragons, so it started becoming a thing. But no, this girl said, yeah, she said, call in the black dragons, and they can literally clear you. So sometimes I'll do that, and I can actually feel something. I don't know what that is. I mean, I don't think it's negative, but I mean, because if it's clearing you, it would have to be something positive. I just don't know what it is because I've never saw anything. I've never saw any kind of entity. I can just sense the energy.
Yeah, and that's kind of how it works from my understandings. It's just asking, you just have to ask for the help, ask for the protection, ask for whatever it is, and they'll be with you. And they can't do it completely for you. You still got to do your work, your part of the journey. But yeah, they'll come in and help you.
Yeah. And then what I was saying was so like my podcasting progressed like from like 2023 I would say 2022. When I first started I was just covering like UFOs and the paranormal and stuff like that. And then I started getting into like more like fringe topics and hardcore topics that like some people won't touch. Like I interview a lot of targeted individuals. These are people, I sometimes feel targeted myself. Some people think that like they're targeted by the government or you can be targeted by entities, and the government can use anything. They can use V2K to tap into your head and put voices in your head. I know this sounds wild, but this is the reports I get from people. They say that they have nanotechnology that they can, that the government has now that they can use to put in people and this is why people are targeted. And then there's like the physical targeting where there's like gang stalking, where people are outside your house and stuff like that. So I covered that. Then I cover military abductions, which are called my labs. And I just had a girl on who today's that where they experience some weird things. Usually, it's someone who's been has contact with aliens. It used to be that. It used to be someone who was contact with aliens, and then the military would follow up and they would do whatever testing on them. But now it's more like the MyLab program seems to be like a more complex program that like individuals are subjected to, that where they're actually like tortured and like put through like crazy scenarios and stuff like that. Like one person I really like his work is James Bartley. He's really big on the reptilians, and he's big on the MyLab program, and he talks a lot about that. And then I like to cover alien abduction because I feel like it's something that's been going on you know since I started listening to this. That's when it was going on big, and before that it seemed like the 70s, 80s, 90s, right around when Whitley Strieber came out with Communion, that like the alien abductions were happening big. And I don't see them happening as much anymore. I don't know what that is. Maybe the aliens ended their program or whatever they were doing, but I mean, it seemed to be a very real thing. It seemed to be, from all the research I did, that it was like because it seemed to be that like, hundreds of thousands of people said they were abducted or had contact with aliens. And then I even covered one time, I had Daryl Sims on my show. He's fascinating. They call him the alien hunter. and he talked about this mass abduction that happened in 1992 in Texas, where a group of people got abducted, and they all happened to be in a MUFON group together or whatever. But some of them didn't know each other or something like that. Daryl said, but like, what was interesting about this was there was the aliens on the ship, and Daryl said there was like the gray aliens, there was like the Nordics, there was a reptilian, and then there was like this like hybrid type thing that was like in charge, and he was asking the abductees, he was like, where's the human spirit? And he was like point, and they had like the aliens had like a holographic image up, and they were saying like, point to the human spirit, and like the abductees were like, what are you talking about, you can't find that. And they were trying to explain it to him, and then they did it again. He pulled up by another abductee, and he was like, point to the human soul. And they had like this like holographic thing up or whatever, and they couldn't do it. Obviously nobody knows where the soul. I mean, we think the soul is probably right around here, right? But I mean, you can't really, it's like energy, But and he said that the guy got really upset about this, whoever this entity was, like this, alien thing, and that made me think about a lot of stuff. That made me think like, well, what do they want to know about, like, it makes me think of like the gray aliens and like some of their experiments with like, are they trying to like build a hybrid race and extract soul? Because maybe I was thinking a soul is everlasting, right? Like we have a soul and we keep reincarnating here over and over again. Maybe some of these aliens don't have a everlasting soul, and they're trying to get that or something, or manipulate it somehow. That's one of my theories. I don't know. You know.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure unless there's like an AI thing going on that they're trying to bring the AI into thinkings. I just recently heard something about that, how they're trying to bring more AI or something like that into reality. So I'm not sure. I still got to learn some more about that one, but
Yeah, and then
yeah,
and then
that's a good one.
I also cover like the secret space program. So I try to get as much. I mean, it's hard to. How do I start on this topic? So I love covering the secret space program. I've had people come on who are whistleblowers and say that there's a real secret space program, that it's actually exists outside of like whatever the government has, their regular rocket program. And this all points back to the Nazis in World War II. Some people think that the Nazis really didn't lose the war; they kind of just restructured, and like where they went to was they call it Base 211 in Antarctica, and they set up shop there. And
Hmm.
what was interesting about that is I think there was one Nazi who was quoted. They found like a subterranean realm, and they said it was perfect for the Fuhrer. So they had been down there messing around, for a long time. Penny Bradley points to the secret space program and like all this stuff back to the 1890s, and she has like documents that prove it, like that, like things were going on a lot more than what we were ever told about, um, but I can't remember exactly what she said about that. But I know, one of the theories is that the Nazis they were working on UFOs at that point. And then there's the Admiral Byrd story, where Admiral Byrd goes, he was a decorated World War II admiral. It's right after the war was over, they had him go down to Antarctica with he went down there with like a fleet, he went down like packing, and supposedly he was encountered by like Nazi UFOs, and they kicked their butts or something. And like and Admiral Byrd came back, and he said apparently the next war we're going to be fighting an enemy that has the ability to go pole to pole with at incredible speeds. He actually said that. But then all what was interesting else about what Admiral Byrd said was he thought that he encountered beings from inner earth as well. He wrote a diary, and he said something about like his plane went in underground, and like he went and experienced this like weird inner earth thing. So when I had Brad Olson on my show, Brad kind of verified those things about the Nazi UFOs, and then also the inner earth thing, which I'm fascinated with inner earth, like but so that would have been like the start of like the Nazi UFOs. Then remember, we brought over those paperclip scientists like Werner von Braun and stuff like that, and a lot of people think that they gave the United States the advanced technology that the Nazis had. And how the Nazis got the technology was through the Vril Society. There were these women. One was Maria Orsich, and they all had very long hair, and they were in like an occult program in the 1920s, 1930s. It was called the Vril Society, and they were channeling some information. They were channeling stuff, and they got a hold of some entities from Aldebaran, some constellation, or supposedly. And they said that these entities sent them the information in Sumerian, which is interesting. And then you don't hear much, but people think that like she was able to channel that information and get like information about how to build UFOs and stuff like that, and she handed it over to the Nazis, and that's how they had it. Now then, their paperclip scientists would have come over to the United States, and then we had the upfront space program, but then a lot of people think that some of those scientists were working on UFO programs behind the scenes, and then around the 90s or early 2000s, the TR-3B emerges, which is a black triangle craft where it's they say that that's ours, that's one of our. They also say the reptilians have a black craft too. So it's I don't know, I've never seen one. I did have a sighting though. I did have a sighting, and this is pretty awesome. So what happened was, I'll just pause the story and I'll tell you this, and my throat's starting to hurt, but I get excited. I like to talk. So what happened was, I did a podcast, and then I went out for a smoke afterwards, and then I just happened to look up, and I saw a drone, and it was weird. It seemed exactly like a drone, because the way it looked. It's on my Instagram. People can go look at it. My Instagram's at Kalil Robert, or just my at my last name and first name, at Kalil Robert, and yeah, give me a follow on Instagram. But anyway, so you can see the image of the drone. You might have to go down a little bit, but it's definitely there. And then it was just like it was. So I got it all on film. But then what was weird about it is, this isn't about the time about 4 months ago, or no, this is July, so this would have been 7 months ago, around November, December, when like all those drones and orbs were showing up in like New York and New Jersey and all around the world. It was like a thing all of a sudden, like, but they were here in Pennsylvania too, because what happened was, the next day I was walking to the dollar store, and I saw this, like, I'll never forget this. It was above the BP gas station, and it was like 300 feet in the air, and I saw this like weird, like blue purple shape shifting orb, and it was like changing colors and stuff. So I hurried up, I reached for my phone, and somehow it blurred out my whole phone. Like, I couldn't get my phone to work at all. It was crazy, like, because I was able to get the drone easily, but this, I don't know what it did. I don't know if it was like the electronics like messing with my phone or what, but like, the thing that I thought that was like kind of strange about this whole thing was the fact that not one other person was paying attention to this. Like, nobody stopped and pulled off the road. Nobody said, "Hey, look, what's that?" No, but not one person stopped. You know what I mean? No one saw it. It seemed like I was the only one who saw it. I don't know if it was meant for me to see, maybe, and maybe it wasn't there for other people. I don't know if things
Right,
like that can happen, but I
right.
don't know. But it was definitely strange for sure.
Yeah. I haven't seen anything like that. Except for, I do take pictures of like the stars and whatnot. So I kind of zoom in on them and all. And I do have pictures with, I got a lot of video. In fact, almost nightly, I can just focus on any star, which we can say a star. But when I zoom in on it, there's a lot of different color lights on it, and they do kind of like do this with the lighting, and it'll kind of do this and whatnots. And with my shaking and everything, I can't tell if it's moving or me moving, but they don't seem to be moving when I'm looking with my eyes. And I've gotten pictures of stars and planets and all of that, and this is the only thing that has the different colors around it. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that is the UFOs, the starships or whatnots, or
I think it
is
was.
it just another star?
I think it was an orb, and it had some kind of intelligence, because it reminded me of like something I would see. Like, I used to watch those old UFOs over Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
if I had to say, it seemed like something that wasn't like from here, you know? I don't know. It's so interesting though, you know? It really is.
Yeah. And I hear it and I
And
see it
then
on all these other platforms and everything. I see these same pictures and they're saying it's a craft of some sort. So I'm assuming it is, but it's so weird.
yeah, yeah. And then what was I saying? So I started, like I was saying, so I started covering these more controversial topics, and I think that's what ended up getting me booted from YouTube. So now what I'm doing is I'm doing like I do a lot of live shows, and I'll do like 30 to 40 minutes on YouTube, and then I'm streaming at Rumble at the same time, and then I'll just end the YouTube stream and I'll continue with Rumble, and then I'll have the whole audience come over to Rumble, and that helps me because then I can get more people over to Rumble, and Rumble's free speech, which I think is really important for right now because with what we're trying to do, which is disclosure and get this information out, we need more free speech platforms, and people are being censored everywhere from like Facebook to YouTube to Twitter. Well, not Twitter anymore, but I mean, it's becoming a thing. It's like and it's horrible once you get censored because like you know you you start to wonder like, well, what did I do? And then you see other people covering stuff, and you're like, wait, that person's covering the same thing as me. Like, why aren't they getting in trouble? You know what I mean? Or like, like, and then you're like, well, does that person, because they usually have a huge following, and you're like, does that are they like, partly like an Agent Smith, from the Matrix? Like, are they sent to like push a narrative, almost like? So I have to think about that sometimes, but yeah, so you never know. But anyway though, I love what I do. I love thinking about the mysteries of the universe and the pyramids and ghosts and everything. You know what I mean? Reincarnation and I just love it all. I really do. That's why I love what I do. What I'd like to do is, turn my show more into like a long form talk radio show where I, take calls from guests and then maybe, instead of doing two, three shows a day, just do one show where it's a long form, you know what I mean? Like, and then, like kind of like how Alex Jones does, if you ever watch his stuff, like he, or like how Art Bell did, like, and then just like make it one big show, and try to make it entertaining and stuff. But like, I don't know a lot about editing and I don't know a lot about like, production of videos. So, yeah, but that's kind of what I'm working on, learning how to take calls next. That's like my thing. I'd like to do that in honor of Art Bell because that's what Art Bell did. He took calls. I can do it now where I use StreamYard and I put the comment up on the screen. You know what I mean? But that's not good enough for me. I want to take calls. So yeah, I'm trying to think if I had any other kind of paranormal or ET experiences or anything like that. Not really. I mean, if you have any questions for me, I answer anything whatever is on your mind.
You've had other guests on your shows. Any of those stories that really hit home with you? Anything that's like, oh wow, I feel like that could have happened to me when during maybe your paralyzing states when you were younger? Does anything like that kind of jump into mind?
No, not like that, but like there are I do get some really good guests, like and it's one thing that I've always been able to do. I've always been able to get like knock on wood, I've always been able to get, really good guests and like some of the ones that blew me away recently were Sean Bond and his girlfriend. They're in Mexico. They're doing like these excavations and they found like these amazing like ET artifacts and they're very real, and it was blowing me away the stuff they found. And when I was looking at this stuff, I was like, man, this needs to be on like the national news. But because of what's going on in the world, you'll never see it on the national news. You won't ever never see it on Ancient Aliens because there's a narrative there too,
Hmm.
but or maybe I don't know, maybe you can, but like it seemed, but this stuff is like this stuff could be priceless. It's real like ET artifacts. And he has footage of him like digging in the holes in Mexico and like pulling stuff out of the ground. You know what I mean? It's like holy shit. Like and it makes me think, well, did that stuff just get washed up in some previous civilization that was there and nobody ever thought to look for it until now? And so I'm trying to think. So he was a good one. Penny Bradley's always really good. She's has a really good story as far as like the secret space program goes, and she's verified. She was verified by Doris Neely, who was at the CIA, and said she saw her file. You know, I'm trying to think. There's a lot. I mean, last month I had a really interesting month because I had on Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot, and I had on Gene Decode, and that was two big ones for me because Carrie, I've been watching her shows since like back in the day. When I first woke up and I was like getting into this stuff, I was watching a lot of Carrie's Project Camelot, and like to me, Project Camelot was legendary. She says she's been doing it since 2005. Like doing like interviews and stuff like that. So like she's like a OG to our community. So for me to be able to interview her, that was a big deal for me. And then Gene Decode's really interesting. He gets a lot of view, for whatever reason, and he always brings a good crowd. And then they all have good breaking information. Like Gene talks a lot about the DUMBs, like the deep underground military bases and stuff like that. I'm trying to think who else was really good. Man, I know. Yeah, I mean, Karen McDonald was really good recently. She came on about the genius biofeedback thing, and she was talking about alternative health modalities. Well, let me just see. I can tell you, it's better. See, I do so many interviews, I forget who I had on. Like, but I can look it up real quick, and so that'd be cheating. But but see if any that come off the top of my mind that were like really good.
I I think it while you're looking, I think it's very interesting to hear about these ones that have like the giant remains. Have you heard about
Yeah.
those where the giant their heads are like bigger than us? I mean, we could stand there and their eye is just bigger than us, just their one eye. And I would like to be able to be on a search like that and to be able to recover something like that. I think that would be so fun.
You actually can so Sean and his girlfriend, his name's there's you can I mean I can send you their information after the show. That's Sean Bond and Issa. They're doing tours to Mexico, and they're gonna take people to these places where they're finding the ET artifacts and let people dig them up themselves and stuff, and then they're going to it's actually an amazing trip to Mexico. They're going all over Mexico, and they're going to be like at some of the hot springs, and like it sounds like they're going to go to all the pyramids, and it sounds like an amazing vacation. Like I'm going to Florida in well, hopefully I am. I'm not sure yet. It's like coming down to the last minute, but I might be going to that Full Disclosure Now conference in July, and I'm really trying to go. I'm saving up all my money, but I mean, we'll see. But I mean, it's yeah, that's a big event coming up, and I have I know Brian. He's been on my show a bunch of times. The guy who throws it, and it's a lot of good speakers this year. Like James Bartley will be there, Brad Olson, Miles Johnson, Laura Eisenhower. It's and what's funny is like I interviewed all these people. So like when I went last year and I got to meet them in person. It was like a weird experience. They're all really cool, like they are. You know what I mean? Or like on the internet, it's but like
Yeah.
it's crazy because I never thought that I would make it this far. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. I got to think a little bit higher of myself, but yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at with everything.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great that you've gotten this far and everything. How long did it take you to get this far?
I've been doing it for 5 years.
5 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm on two now, so I'll get there.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's just yeah, it comes with time, and like I think you're doing all the right things, and it's just a matter of like, it's just dedication, and then staying consistent. You want to always stay consistent. It seems like people like that. I'm trying to think of another guest that I had on recently was Olivia James. Olivia James is really good. She's a friend of mine. She's a secret space program. She supposedly spent time on Mars, and she talked about Project Oblivion, which is supposedly this black ops government project that is targeting like influencers, podcasters in our community, and experiencers, to get them to not talk about this. And she talks about that it's a whole resistance that we're setting up. You know, as we're putting out this disclosure, it's like a resistance movement, you know, against like all the corruption that's going on and the targeting and all that. And you know, she talks about the kids of the future. She calls them the Olympia group, which she said they're all young now, but she said when they get to our age, they'll be watching our shows and they'll be using it for reference because she said that's when the real revolution will begin. She said we won't see it in our lifetime, but it's like, you know, yeah,
Yeah.
it's just pretty
Wow.
interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Yeah, we are making history when we're making these shows.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
And then I'll tell you another really good guest I had on. I had on Robert Bitto. He's from Mexico Unexplained. He has a really niche like type show. It's amazing. Like he talks about like all the weird like folklore, legends, monsters, cryptids, alien stuff that comes out of Mexico, and he knows the culture so well because he's had a an import business for years that he would run out of Los Angeles, and he would get like Mexican imported goods, and he just loves the culture, you know. But and he's learned all his life about all these like, you know, legends and cryptids and folklore and stuff, and it's so cool hearing him talk about all that. You know, I've noticed that a lot of these countries like Mexico, Africa, they have so much more rich tradition and like alien culture. You know what I mean? I remember, like for example, I remember I used to listen to the Zulu shaman Credo Mutwa, who David Icke interviewed a while back, and he would talk about reptilians, but he also talked about all the different like creatures and aliens that were, you know, that would visit Africa. You know what I mean? And he had like he was a shaman. He was like a Zulu shaman. You know, he had like a doll or a representation of each one, and he was explaining it. You know, he didn't know where they came from. He just knew that they existed and that they were, you know, bothering people, or you know, that one's called Credo Mutwa, Ancient Aliens Africa, and I'm telling you, that will blow your mind if you haven't seen it. It's pretty cool, you know. I love stuff like that, you know. I really do. That's like right up my alley, you know.
Yeah, yeah. It's like really interesting to see the different places that have the experiences and all. So I'd hear Mexico has a lot of it. Um, that's one of the bigger ones, but yeah, there's a lot of places out there that is having a lot of experiences.
Yeah, I
So
think
it's
it's
not
because I
just
think
here.
the veil's thinning. You know, I think like we're experiencing more because the veil's thinning, and I think people are going to experience more. I think it's going to be start becoming a thing. You know, like well, it already is, but I think it'll be even more so. It'll be, you know, it'll be like amplified pretty soon. You know, I don't know how thin the veil is, but I mean, it seems like it's pretty. You know, it's you know, people are having. We have a place. Oh, I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and we have a place up here. It's called the Chestnut Ridge. People have written books about it, and they've done documentaries on it. And on this Chestnut Ridge, it goes from Pennsylvania to West Virginia, and it has everything from like cryptids, you know, thunderbirds, Bigfoot, UFO sightings, alien abductions, missing time, you know, Black Panthers. It's just like a plethora for like paranormal activity, you know?
Yeah, I was looking at a chart the other day of the United States and of having Bigfoot sightings, and where I'm at, it's just right along the Rocky Mountains. It's just all along there. I mean, it's just covered with sightings. And it's like, wow. I mean, I
Yeah,
think I've heard one here in the city, which is kind of crazy,
yeah.
but
Oh, sorry, I was gonna say, Nick, did you heard you had one? Did you said?
I I believe I heard one. Just I live in a cul-de-sac, so I live across the street and in front of the house that's across the street from me, because it kind of points in a different direction. In front of their house, I was hearing some noises, and that's the only thing I could think of that it could have been because at that time we didn't have any dogs that were loud or anything. They were very, very quiet dogs at that time. And it didn't sound like any fox or anything like that because fox are pretty quiet.
Yeah.
And we don't really have coyotes here. So it just didn't match up with any of the sounds of animals that I know of around here.
Yeah,
So
it
yeah,
seems to be. It seems to be they seem to be real prevalent. Yeah, like they yeah, I don't know. Like it's I think they're a lot more than what people think. You know,
yeah,
they're a lot more. They're a lot more out there than people think. And for some reason, like they have this whole culture with like the whole Bigfoot tribe knows how to evade humans. You know, which makes me think, well, what do they think about humans? They must not think, because you know why? Because honestly, and people have said this over time, but it's probably true. If a human got in touch with a Bigfoot and a human has a gun and it could capture a Bigfoot, it would capture it and then it would put it in some disgusting place where it would be like tested upon and it would have a horrible life. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I mean, like, look at what we do to the creatures in the zoo. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing because like the zoos got to exist, I guess, too. But I mean, like, you can't tell me, some of those animals probably aren't happy to be there. Like I don't know. I mean, I don't know. That's
yeah.
the world's so weird in that way. In a way, it's like you could take your kid to the zoo and it's like it's all oh it's the zoo, it's a fun place, but then you're like, well, wait, is the animal happy to be there? So it's like it's like it's everything to here is duality. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
weird.
I hope that the animals in the zoos are animals that would not be able to survive if they were out in the wild. So it's more of a helping, I would hope, to help them survive. And with the Bigfoots, I think they
Dana, you're
can,
cutting out. I'm
um,
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
is
you. You're
that,
cutting
no,
out
that's
really
fine.
bad.
You're fine. Can you hear me now? Is it better now?
Yeah, yeah.
No? Yeah,
If
better?
you might just have to repeat your question, if yeah, because I can hear you a little bit better. Yeah.
Okay. Um, yeah, I think the Bigfoot, they're able to know the energy that we're the intent of why we're there. So if we're there to be friends with them and communicate with them and respect them, they'll be cool with us. But if we're there to in fear, harm, or anything of the negative side of it, I think they will attack. I mean, you would too if you had someone attacking you in a negative way versus, hey, I'm going to just come and be friends with you. You're going to say, let's be friends. Or versus somebody that's going to say, okay, I'm going to take your house, or, going to be something on that, a negative energy with it. So I think it all depends on the energy you give out to them.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. That's a good point. I think it's a really good point. What was I gonna say? But yeah, so that's what I've been covering lately. It's been a lot of a lot of fringe topics that a lot of people don't talk about, or So I like it though. And I like UFOs. I'm hoping we get disclosure someday. I don't know if we will, but I'm hoping we do. That's like a whole big thing in itself. It's like a rabbit hole about like what like I was thinking like what like you have these whistleblowers that come out and supposedly there's like a whistleblower protection act, but like I think there's a lot more whistleblowers that would want to come forward that know about technology that the government has, that also that the government's been working with aliens, and it's not just like it's like it's not like that they've met them once or something like that. It's like no, there's like humans and aliens working together in deep underground military bases, deep undersea bases. That's where we see a lot of the USOs, the unidentified submerged objects that go from air to sea, and they do it seamlessly. Like they can, create a force field around them, and it lets them transition from air to sea, like literally like nothing. And those always fascinated me. I interviewed Preston Dennett about those. I think you had Preston on your show. He's amazing with what he knows about ETs. you know he uh he blew me away with that topic, the USOs, because there's definitely going something going on under the ocean too.
Yeah,
For
yeah, they're
absolute sure.
everywhere. Absolutely. Absolutely. They are everywhere. Um, and even amongst us, we don't even know how many people are amongst us that are either a hybrid or full. Um, inner ET, but in our body, in our form. We just don't know. There's just so many of them out there, and we have no idea what's going on. We are just, it's just so amazing.
What did you, when you had Preston on, do you remember what you covered with him or?
I believe he did talk a little bit about the UFOs and some experiences he had as a child.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You know, you got to you got to have him on again. He does this. He has a really cool book out. I love this book. I have it, and I would recommend anybody get it. It's called UFOs at the Drive-In, and it's all about drive-in UFO encounters. You know, which I to me I love that because like I'm an '80s kid, and like I remember going when I was a kid to like the drive-in, and like I never saw a UFO, but apparently, people did, and like, like suppose, and when especially when these UFOs would show up over the drive-in, a lot of the times they would put on a show, and the show you would see from the UFOs would be a lot better than the movie you were watching. You know what I mean? So yeah, you should talk to him about that. It's a really cool topic, and supposedly these cases he gets are verified, because that's one thing about Preston. He always gets like he tries to get verified sources, and I really respect that because he wants to prove the phenomena is real, and I like that. I like anybody that wants to prove that it's like very real and it's a part of our reality, and
Right.
I'd like to know when I'm gonna meet an alien. I don't know. Maybe it'll happen when I go to Florida or something. But I mean, I've asked for signs many times and I haven't got any. That same thing happened to me with after death. I was skeptical about after death because my dad died when I was 21, and I was young, and I remember I was dating a girl at that time, and she was a really nice girl, and I don't know, it just it messed me up seeing my dad die like that of cancer, and like, and then I tried to reach out to him, and like I didn't get anything. I mean, I did have some weird dreams about him, that like maybe he came to me in my dreams, but like, every person. I mean, I'm not skeptical of the afterlife because I believe what people say. Like when people say they've had an NDE or when they've met an angel or that like this relative or that relative came back to them, and I believe in psychics and I believe in mediums, and at least I want to believe. But like as far as like me personally, like everyone that's died, no one's ever come back and contacted me ever. You know what I mean? I never even had a sign of it. So it's like there is a little bit of part of me that's still skeptical, but like I think we have enough proof that something does happen when we pass, and like that I mean, like, do you have conversations with like what we would call like people that have passed? Is that part of your psychic ability as well?
I haven't yet. My brother has it. My brother talks to my mom, my uncle, and a miscarriage I had. Um, he's gotten in touch with my baby, and we actually had conversation. My brother was being the medium for it, and we talked for about 3 hours, the three of us. That
Wow.
was really cool. Yeah. But personally, no, I haven't had a conversation with them. And I'm still working on trying to connect with the ETs too. I'm trying to connect with my star seeds. So
Do you ever
I'm
do
still working on it too.
CE5s? Do you ever do CE5 meditations?
No, I haven't done that yet. I feel like I need more time, and with my schedule and everything, it's really hard to get that full time to really get deep into that meditation. So yes, it's been tough for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to do a C5. I want to learn how to do it like the right way, and I want to try to connect with the aliens or whatever. Like I'm really I want to see something. I that's where the name typical skeptic came from because like I'm skeptical, but I'm open minded. Like I'm not skeptical to where I'm a cynic and I'm like but like I'm like let's see if we can see a little bit of proof, but if we can't, if it can't be that, I'm okay with like just hearing someone's story. That's fine. I'm not gonna you know uh I'm not going to badmouth them or question them or be skeptical. That's not. I feel like that's not my place. You know what I mean? That's why I came up with this saying for my podcast. It's called "We Go Deep and You Decide," meaning that like
Yeah.
we'll go deep on the episode, but then it's up to you guys to use your discernment and like go wherever you're going to take and take whatever you're going to take with it. And I like that. I'm sticking with that slogan. I made some merch with it, and like yeah, I think that because then because I don't want to be that guy that like someone comes on my show and then I'm like being a dickhead to them because because people feel like I need to be skeptical. It's like I'm not skeptical in that way. I'm skeptical in like I just like to see evidence if we can, but I'm very open minded and I'm a believer in most things. Because I
Hmm.
realize that the paranormal is very more mysterious and it's hard to capture on. It's hard to get evidence from. You know what I mean? Whether it's UFOs, paranormal, cryptids are seem impossible. But I mean, so there has to be you have to give some slack with like your beliefs or your thoughts, right? You can't just be like a rigid, because I see some people in the community like that. They're like really rigid skeptics, and it's like, they could have so much better shows if they would open their mind a little bit. Like, and then they end up like just ragging on people. Like I've seen some of these channels where like these people they'll go on their channel and they'll talk about someone the whole time, and I'm like, man, that's not good because I mean, you're hurting that guy's business. You know what I mean? Like, and you don't even know for sure the stuff you're saying about him. So like, what gives you the right to do that? So and that comes from that like that cynicism that people have. So now there's a difference between with like with Corey Good and David Wilcock. I'm not a big fan of theirs. I won't talk about them really, but I'm just not a big fan of theirs because of like some of their actions in the past and stuff like that. Um, Corey Wilcock had to go to court, and he was said that he tried to say that he made up the secret space program, which he didn't. He didn't. It's a whole thing. So yeah, but
That's what
yeah,
I
I
like about that's what I
I'm
like
sorry.
about my show. I just let people talk their stories because it's their truth. I mean, you can believe or not, but it's their truth. And if somebody else has had anything similar to it, they can say, "Oh, I totally get that." And they're now that person's not going to feel like they're going crazy or anything. So, I mean, all this stuff is out there, and I just want people to know it's there and that,
I
you
agree.
know, it, so many people have these experiences, and it's just, it's unlimited, the experiences that are out there.
Yeah, I was saying, I hope this is interesting for your audience because I know that I'm not an experiencer, but like, I don't want to lie either. I don't want to come on your show, and I wouldn't want to tell a lie. I just want to tell people what's going on with me, and when I know more, because like people have told me I've been abducted. People have told me I'm in the secret space program. I'm like, well, I have no memories of it, and I don't want to buy into anything yet because I'm not sure. As soon as I have a more like I was able to tell you about the UFO experiences because that was real and the drone was real and all that and the orb was real, but then I had an entity attachment. But like as far as like some of the other stuff, I'm still on the fence about it because like as far as like my own personal life because like I don't have any proof. But I mean, yeah, and I always want to be honest with the audience. I feel like that's like a big thing for me is I always want to come off like pure and honest and so the audience kind of respects me. I'm sure you feel the same way, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I am. I am unique. I am myself, and I look at it, if you can't understand who I am and how I run the show or whatever, I mean, that's up to you. I mean, if you don't like it, don't watch. But I try to be very honest and um authentic, and I'd
Yeah,
like my
I've
guests to
noticed you
be the
are.
same way.
Yeah, I've noticed you are. Like from like when doing shows with you and stuff like that. I noticed you just you tell your exact truth or from what you know of. It's like what happened to you. So like I like that. I think and yeah, yeah, this was cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's always so much fun. All right. Well, we'll close it up at this point then. And thank you so much for being on the show and talking about some of your experiences and everything. It's so awesome. I'm glad you were here and helping others out, being a little more open and not so skeptical, but skeptical.
Mm. Well, thank you, and yeah, I look forward to coming on again. And yeah,
Awesome.
this is awesome.
Awesome.
All right, take care. Have a good night.
All right. You too. Bye. If anyone out there has any stories you would like to share, email me at lighttalk423@gmail.com and we'll get you on the show. And don't forget to check out my website at www.lighttalkwithdana.com and check out what's coming up. I have another show I'm going to be doing so for my readings. So I check it out, see what's happening, and get your own private readings then. And we will talk with you next time. Thanks for joining us. Bye.